There's an emergency. Thank you.
This is going on YouTube.
Oh.
So it's the 7th of May and 10 of us are off to France for a week. Organised by Mike Chilvers, Chile and paramotorfrance.com. Absolutely brilliant holiday. Tried to keep this video short, but it ended up being about half an hour long. But it's worth it, worth sitting through and watching all the shenanigans we get up to. Had 12 flights, flew every day. A total of 14 hours flight time. So a really, really great trip.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So an early start on the first day, the first flight of the holiday, and we're off to a cute little place called Brantôme, which is a medieval town which has a lovely abbey in it. So weather's really good, clear skies, very calm winds, pretty much nil wind launch, and just loving flying over France. The Benedictine Abbey was built by Charlemagne in AD 769. Look at that house down there on the left on the cliffs. So this flight ended up being about an hour and a half long. Just went down to Brantôme and back basically. And there's Lee flying along with me. As we're flying back, we see this French paramotorist setting up in a field. Just happened to fly over him. Before I took off, I did have some issues starting my engine and actually had an engine out. So I was a little bit nervous because there's a plane coming out of the hangar and I can't start my engine, so I have to come into land, and I'm just hoping that that plane takes off before I get down to ground level. Luckily, as you can see there, he's taking off and I come in for a landing and all is well.
I just had an engine out as well.
You did?
Yeah.
I nearly did.
Oh, I did. I couldn't start it either.
So in the evening we went up to a French paramotor field where lots of French pilots are learning to fly. They very kindly allowed us to join them. So here's Lee going for his takeoff. So down below you can see all the French pilots doing their ground handling. So this flight ends up being about an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. We fly over a couple of little French towns, little French villages. Beautiful evening, very warm, it's probably about 25 degrees C on the ground, maybe about 20 degrees up here. And fly over a few quarries, and I'm going to cut most of it out because it wasn't much else to see apart from all of the trees and so on. Later flights we do see some chateaus, so I'll show you those a bit later on. So then come in for a landing.
Carry on.
There he goes. He's got to run it back. Oh, keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going. Nice. Lovely.
Oh, he's the man.
He is.
No, he's going to ram us. Great.
Way! Oh, nearly got Ed.
Oh, he's ripped it.
That's very close.
There's an emergency. Thank you.
This is going on YouTube.
Oh.
I do apologise, Simon, but that was too funny not to include it. So this is one of the favourite flights of the trip for me. Here's Gary with his trike. blowing my wing away as well. So a lesson to everyone, don't set up your wing behind a trike, it will get blown away. So we go down to a really nice chateau called, I don't know how to pronounce this, I think it might be Rochechouart. Anyway, this was situated in a crater, an impact crater caused by an asteroid that crashed into the Earth's surface about 200 million years ago. And the chateau is built on the edge of the crater there, and it's a 13th century French castle. So I really enjoyed this one. Weather was perfect, nil wind conditions, quite warm, and then we headed up, there's Ed down below, headed up to the lakes and flew around this beautiful French scenery. It's really, really great. Thoroughly enjoyed this one. What I've noticed about this area of France, just seems to be loads of large kind of stone buildings. Most of them are limestone, I think, but they're just all over the place. So I'm sitting up here with my coffee, just really enjoying myself and flying over the chateau again at 3,000 feet. There is a ceiling here, not allowed higher than 3,300. And this flight was about an hour and a half long. And this runway is quite curious, it kind of drops off quite steeply at the end.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Didn't want to come down.
So it's quite hot this day. It's probably 28, 29 degrees C on the ground. So quite warm, getting set up. And this flight is about an hour and 20 minutes long, and we see some lovely chateaus. So here goes Chile for his launch. Very nice. And then we all take off one after the other. Here goes Lee. I think I'm next, then Ed. One thing I loved about the trip was that there were lots of different airfields for us to fly from. So we've got the van and 3 cars for the 10 of us to go around in, so we could get all of our paramotors in the van all fully made up and go to all these different airfields. So this chateau here is actually quite new, built in 1939 and suspended during the war, but then it continued until 1975. So as you can see, there's lots and lots of trees, so I have to get some decent altitude to, if you get an engine failure, you don't get yourself in trouble. And just lots of lovely chateaus all over the place. This here is quite close to Combières, the place that we were staying. We had a little gîte run by John Cooper. So this is Combières down below, and the gîte where we're staying. A lovely kind of stone farmhouse with a little pool in there. Great accommodation, and yeah, really, really great place. This here is Chateau Rochefoucauld, which is a 13th century French castle. There's a quarry here, and we did a little bit of digging around in the quarry, and then a little bit of low flying away from built up population, and then back to the airfield. So on day 3 in the evening, the plan is to fly to a restaurant. This is me taking off. And the restaurant has a very small kind of grass field out the back. It's quite kind of long and thin and very, very long grass. And it's surrounded by trees, power lines and a river. So it's a bit dangerous, to be honest. But so the purpose of this flight really is to fly down, look at a few chateaus on the way, and check out the restaurant and see if we think it's good enough to land in. So on the way down there, we fly over Brantôme again, which I talked about earlier. So there's a restaurant down below, and I'll show you in detail the landings on that one. This here is Chateau de Marouat. Miles Copeland is the owner, purchased it in the mid-90s as a songwriting retreat for artists, leading to 4 US #1s being written, and he's the manager of The Police and Sting. So back at the airfield now, we go back and have some lunch and get refreshed, and this landing is a bit dodgy because it's quite thermic and gusty at this point.
Woohoo! Oh, nearly went over.
Keep going. That's nasty, isn't it?
Well, that was interesting.
Can we win the call? No.
Got that on camera. Very nice. Out of 10, what would you give yourself for that landing?
Oh, that was a 10. That's Prince Perfect in action.
That's brilliant.
One of my finest.
It's probably one of the better ones here actually today. It's quite thermic coming in. Go on, son. Oh, hey! On his feet, on his feet.
So these last 2 days have been quite hot. It's probably got up to maybe 30 degrees on the ground this day. So the conditions are quite switchy. The wind is moving around with the thermals, and I did have a bit of a struggle to get off the ground on this flight.
That's it.
Yeah, finally up in the air, and by this point I'm pretty hot, pretty sweaty. So bring a drink with me and have a drink in the air as soon as I get up. There's the chateau owned by Miles Copeland. So not far away is the restaurant, and there it is down below next to the river. There's a bridge down there by the river, and if you look next to the bridge there's the restaurant. And we all come in one after the other into the field. Some guys decide that it's not for them. It is quite tricky because sort of the high trees, the river, there's a power line running across the field next to the restaurant. So lots of obstacles to contend with. But some of the foolish ones in the group decide it's fine and let's come in for a landing. So here's some footage from Lee's camera. Here he is coming in for his landing.
It's long. You're fine. Brilliant! Absolutely brilliant! And he's killed it, he's in!
So here's my landing from my perspective. Now I did go quite long on this landing, mainly because I was a bit scared of those power lines. I wanted to keep well away from them, so I made sure I had plenty of altitude to keep away from them.
Whoa!
I was actually quite pleased I managed to land on my feet.
Well done. You got in.
So it was a bit of a long walk out, but well worth it. Had a great meal, really great food here, and had just a brilliant time. Really enjoyable day, this one. So a couple of days later, it turns out we made the local news. So I thought it was pretty funny. I just want to quickly share this. This is the French version. I'll put a link to the article in the description. You can have a read. It's quite funny. But the mystery of ULMs in the Dordogne. They shaved the roofs of the houses. So ULMs, I'm guessing, is ultralight motor or ultralight paramotor. At 8:30 a.m. we wondered what was going on. My husband stormed out of our mobile home. They were spinning left and right and shaved the roof of the houses. And if you have a look through here, it's quite funny. They passed close to the trees, testifies a resident. It sounded like mowers. Were they doing trials? So have a look through that. It's quite funny. So just for everyone's information, if you're not a paramotorist, it is legal to fly low if you are taking off or landing. At all other times in the UK, the minimum height is 500 feet, and over towns it's much higher than that. You need to be able to glide to the edge of a town. And it's very similar in France. So we weren't breaking any laws, but we caused a bit of a commotion with the locals, which is quite funny. So we all got up early and looked out the window, and it was foggy. I thought, nevertheless, you've got to be in it to win it, so we'll drive down to the field. But as we got there, the fog just seemed to get thicker and thicker, and we did hang around in the field for an hour or so and decided to bin it. I thought, what can we do instead? Let's go karting. Of course, by the time we got to the karting field, all the fog had lifted, and turned out to be a really nice day. So but we had a great time out on the track. This is Ed driving. So that evening, even though the fog had lifted, we went back to the same airfield. It was quite windy. In fact, we had to wait until almost sunset before we could launch. So I'm doing a reverse. I very rarely do a reverse. I much prefer a forward launch. But had to do a reverse to get up on this one, and didn't really go very far. But it was worth going up because it was a beautiful sunset. Really nice. So glad I got up in the air. So on this flight I'm chasing Simon, you can see in the distance. He's on a Hadron 3 wing. I've connected up my speed bar, so I'm trying to catch him up. But I don't realise he's on speed bar as well. And by the time I catch him, he actually turns around and goes back. So, I then see Ed, and there's Ed there down below. And we just fly around and just admire the sunset, really, admire the view. And then by the time we've done that, we've come back in for landing. So this flight was probably... Let's have a look. This flight was 40 minutes long, so not very long at all. Some people in those houses on the right there, they all come out and watch us land. They've got a good view of the airfield from their back gardens. So here I am coming in for a landing. So it's a bit of a grey, rainy start to the morning on this one, but I really enjoyed this flight because once the rain had stopped, we took off around 10:30. So we flew from here to the accommodation. So basically, took off, went above the clouds, and landed right next to the gîte where we're staying, and clipped my wing in the garden, which is great. So a noticeable turn in the weather. It's probably only about 15 to 20 degrees C at this point. Quite humid and looks a lot like England, I guess, on this flight. So, but that's fine. And I've got my flying suit on. I'm still toasty warm, and actually enjoying being above the clouds for the first time in France. So I've been instructed that when I come in for the landing that I need to avoid the cows, which is in the top right of that field there. So where it says landing zone, there's a field of cows next to it. So what I'm trying to do is to go to 2,000 feet, go to idle, and then come all the way in for a landing without using any power. So I do manage to achieve that.
Where's he going? What's he doing over there?
I'll tell you what, you hang in the air a bit.
Yeah, the landing is complete on and on.
Yeah. Well, well, a bridge on as well.
It's a rough.
That's freaking awesome.
So once we've landed, we just pick up our gear. I'm still clipped into my paramotor, and we just walk back through the village. What I've noticed about French towns is there doesn't seem to be anyone around, so I thought it would be quite funny, French people looking at us, but there's literally no one around. So we walk back to the garden, unclip, and then chill out for a bit till the next flight.
Wing to the piston, please. Unclipping in the garden.
So I've actually forgotten to put my wing in the van this day because when we landed at Combières, I just forgot to put it in the van. So Steve very kindly let me borrow his Dudek Drifter, which is quite an advanced wing, I think, but actually launched really easily. So that was great to fly a different wing. Thanks, Steve. Although on launch I may be getting tired or what, I don't know, but the brake lines were wrapped around, which is not ideal on a advanced glider, but managed to just unwrap it. It just had one wrap around. So got that corrected, and then the idea on this flight was to fly over to some quarries, which there is some turquoise water in them. But on the way over I feel some spots of rain and decide to abandon the idea because the rain started to come down quite hard. So I turned round and went straight back. So actually this flight was probably the worst flight of the entire trip. And so on the way back I went up to 4,000 feet and flew around the clouds, and then came back down and had a landing.
What a shit flight.
That's what we said as well.
He goes, what a shit flight.
I'm glad I didn't go.
No, honestly, you've not missed anything. It was a bit.
Martin said the same.
Oh, I didn't even get to the lakes and it was just like pissing down rain.
So it's still a little bit overcast from the day before, but it is brightening up over in the distance there. So we're quite near to Angoulême, so I decided to fly over to there. I'm just flying on my own on this one, a bit of an unsociable flight. And just wanted to have a look at the big town. I didn't fly right over it. I think it's in airspace anyway, so I can't go over that way. And fly back over this nice bridge, which looks like it would be really great to fly under, actually. That bridge down there, don't know what it's called. Another lovely chateau, which was built in the 14th century. This one was built in the 13th century, I think. So here are some caves. We actually went in the caves. I'm not going to show any footage of it because this is a Paramotor video, but the caves down there were great. They're basically limestone caves, and they go for kilometres and kilometres underground. So that was quite cool. So despite it being quite overcast, I did quite enjoy this flight. Did a bit of low flying as well. Saw this field here with a sprinkler spraying, so a few of us just kind of flew around in here and had a bit of a laugh, and then came back. So almost at the end. This is the final flight of the trip, and quite a short one, this one. I think it was about an hour or so long. We had to be back down for 9 PM because we went to a restaurant in the evening. So I think we're taking off around 8ish, something like that. Yeah, just 5 minutes to 8. Just go out for an hour. But it was a really lovely evening, so all of the clouds had kind of dispersed. The sun came out and it was a lovely sunset flight. So yeah, enjoyed that one. So this is Villebois, which was the first building was erected in the year 959, and that chateau down there was reworked in the 13th century in stone. So that's it for the holiday. I'm going to come in for a landing. We go out to actually an English pub this evening, and we have some English food for the first time on the holiday. What a fantastic trip. Really, really enjoyed it. Great bunch of people. We had some great food. It was really exhausting though. We were in bed at kind of midnight every night, getting up at between 5 and 6 AM in the morning. Some days we managed to grab an hour or two siesta, but most of the time we were pretty much sleep deprived the whole time. So I hope you enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll definitely do another trip abroad next year. So thanks again to Chile, Mike Chilvers, You Fly for Fun. If you're thinking of paramotor training, heartily recommend you check Chile out. There's his website. Thanks to John and Martha for hosting us in the gîte at paramotorfrance.com. And also thanks to Steve Jennis, for driving the van all the way from the UK to France with Mike. And also to my personal chauffeurs, a very special thank you to Gary and Lee for driving the hire car.